Up. Welcome everybody that's just coming in to Zoom. And did you start over in YouTube?
It's starting.
It's coming. Wait
It
for
should
it.
be live now.
Woohoo! So welcome everybody to day 4, active defense and cyber deception. And for those of you that have tried to register for next week's SOC core skills, we realized that there was a little bug. So we're fixing that. So I will let everybody know when that is fixed if you are not registered already, because unfortunately next week we will not be streaming to YouTube. So if you want to come, you can come, but you have to register.
Yeah, and sorry about the YouTube thing, but our team that pulls that off, they are going to be at MSP GeekCon, and really we dropped this whole YouTube thing, I think like Thursday of last week. It was like, let's do YouTube, everybody.
Yeah, and we were like, what?
So it went great. We're very, very, very happy with it. And we're going to, I think it's going to become just a standard operating procedure for us. But we really want to make sure that next week we have the right team in place to make it happen again. And it'll get standardized, and we'll just do it as part of standard operating procedures, because it was great. It went really, really, really well. So
yes, we definitely got some a newer audience for sure. And I dropped the link, but it might not work yet. So
I remember like all the people that were just like, oh, you shouldn't do this on YouTube. YouTube people are evil. They come and they play for keeps. When they insult you, you stay insulted. And the YouTube people have just been awesome through this whole entire thing.
Well, I mean,
yeah,
we're a pretty fun bunch. I mean, what's there really to complain about?
There you go. Well, don't give them a challenge, Megan.
Listen,
you're just coming out ahead.
Challenge thrown down.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah. You want a refund for your free training?
Yeah.
Okay, here you go. Here's your refund.
So but no, it's been a really good week. I'm looking forward to next week. Yes. SOC core skills hits different. It's different than this class for sure, but it's a lot of fun in different ways. I just realized I don't know where my AirPods and stuff went. So, but yeah, if you do want to come next week, you gotta get signed up on the link that Megan's going to provide a little bit later. So.
Yeah, I did post it, but don't use it yet because I'm not sure if it's fixed yet. But I will post it again, even if it interrupts. We will get it posted.
Oh, more cats.
Yes.
More cats and kitties. Yeah, I just realized I'm not caffeinated of any kind this morning. I don't even have decaf. What? I don't know how that's going to work. It's just the power of low sodium V8 to compel me this morning.
Yes, it will.
Us together. Yeah, last day.
So somebody asked in the student lobby, John.
Yeah.
And I think that they're in this class, I'm assuming. So they're just starting out in their career in cybersecurity. Although I'm front-end engineer who wants to get into purple team, what other classes or tutorials or project-based learning do you think I should follow through to prepare me for this role?
Carrie's class. Gotta get him into Carrie's class.
Which one?
The Atomic Red Team class.
Okay.
That's the one.
All right. I will post a link. Kelsey-sec. The seraph, the seraph, I think. But it looks like we're right at the top of the hour. Are you ready to rock and roll?
I'm ready to rock and roll. Let's do this. All I got to do is share my screen.
Oh yeah, we forgot to
kick Ryan off.
Yeah.
Oh, whoops.
Just feel bad. Can't think of anything bad to say about
turn
Ryan.
On the multi-share screen button, but
multi-share screen.
Yep, that was my bad. Now it's fixed.
Right.
All you.
Woo! All right.
Let's do it, everybody. All right. Well, welcome to day 4. This is the end. My only friend, the end. So there's going to be some people that get that reference. And I just want to say it's time to take your Centrum Silver if you did. All right. So attribution, next section that we're going into. We're going to jump into this and we're going to start talking about legal issues. And we're going to look at this from a couple of different ways. We're going to look at it from existing case law and then also some cases, actually some laws that people are trying to develop now, not actual laws, but it gives you an idea kind of what the world is looking at and how they're looking at these different issues. And there's really not a lot of established case law here, like at all. And basically, it's a bunch of rumor, conjecture, and people freaking out about things that they shouldn't freak out about. And we're going to try to cut through the chase, and we're going to kind of surprise some of you. So here's the first case that I'd love to talk about. This is Jerome Hackenkamp. Unfortunately, having a name that sounds and looks very close to Hack in Camp, but it's Hackenkamp. He was a student at a university and he decided that he was going to get into some shenanigans. However, before he was actually doing that shenanigans, one of the systems administrators at the university he was going to was told by the FBI, "Hey, we're seeing attacks come from the university that you work at. Could you please help us possibly find the attacker?" So the systems administrator saw some attacks coming from this IP address, and then the IP address changed. And then the IP address shifted again. It's almost like somebody knew how to use the IF config command to change their IP address. But there he was, changing his IP address. Systems administrator was able to identify that these IP addresses that were launching attacks, they were all coming from the same MAC address. Ooh, on the same switch port in a dorm room. So the systems administrator calls up the FBI and says, "Yo, FBI, I think I've got your boy. I'm going to go into his dorm room and I'm going to see if it's actually his computer." At which point the FBI said, "Please don't do that. Let us get a warrant before anybody does that." Systems administrator thought, "Yeah, what the hell? Why do I have to listen to the FBI at all?" Went into Jerome's dorm room without a warrant as a member of the university, sat down at his computer, and I kid you not, Jerome's password and user ID was temp and freaking temp, logged in with the defaults, temp. Simply opened up a command prompt, verified the MAC address, got off of the computer system, called the FBI, and "I didn't listen to you. I went and I verified the MAC address, and it is, in fact, this computer that's doing the attacks." Now, was that evidence that systems administrator captured admissible in a court of law? We got nope, not likely. Nope. We got no op. That's cool. No, it is not. Luke came out, and so did Rosie. God damn, you guys and your names. They got it right. It was admissible in court. Couple of reasons why it was admissible in court. The first reason was the systems administrator that did it was not a member of law enforcement. And when you're talking about warrants and things like that, that generally applies to law enforcement or people acting on behalf of law enforcement. And then Mrs. CY nailed it. The university, because Jerome was staying in a dorm room, has permission to go into students' dorm rooms for any purpose they deem fit, for the health and well-being of the university student, and also for like janitorial and just general maintenance activities that may need to be done in that dorm room. So it's kind of like if you're at the university, you really have no right to privacy from the university. They can like come in at any time. They can just kind of walk in and be like, "This is ours. That's ours right there. See that desk over there? That's mine too. See these windows? Those windows over there, they're mine as well." Like, you have no right to privacy on that situation as well. Also, the judge ruled in this particular case that the exigency of the circumstances probably warranted the systems administrator going in and logging into the computer system, which I vehemently disagree with in that particular case. However, the more important lesson to learn in this particular situation was Jerome Hackenkamp was actually being defended by one of the best computer security lawyers in the world, Jennifer Granick, who works for the EFF. He didn't like her, he fired her, and he decided, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to defend myself. anytime you ever think that defending yourself is the right way to go, you're being a moron. Don't do that. All right. But the other thing that the judge ruled is that Jerome's privacy was not violated because the systems administrator simply went in and got IP address and MAC address information. There was nothing sensitive about those things, which once again, I also disagree with, but stick with me. That's kind of how the courts ruled in this particular situation. All right, another great case. Susan Clements Jeffrey versus Absolute Software. Susan Clements Jeffrey was a substitute teacher, and she was substitute teaching, as substitute teachers are wont to do. And one of her students came up to her and said, "Psst, Susan, do you want a MacBook Pro? Dirt cheap. It fell off a truck." And Susan Clements Jeffrey said, "Sure. This seems like a totally legit deal. There is no way that any of this could possibly ever go wrong." So they met at a school bus stop. I am not making that up. They literally met at a bus stop. And then she bought the MacBook Pro. I want to say it was something like $50. Just to, all right, $50. Susan Clements Jeffrey takes this computer system home, which, by the way, the computer was stolen from another school district. Big shocker, right? So it was stolen from the school district, and she got home and then immediately started cyber sexting her boyfriend. Now, the Absolute Software is kind of like LoJack software for computers that gave the owners of the computer system, i.e. the school, full access to the computer. And once they got access to the computer system, they got multiple pictures of Susan Clements Jeffrey in various states of undress and sexual activity. Susan Clements Jeffrey decided, hey, this sounds like a lawsuit just waiting to happen. And the judge in that particular case ruled thusly. It is one thing to cause a stolen computer system to report its IP address or geographical location information in an effort to track it down. It is another thing completely and utterly entirely different to violate federal wiretapping laws by intercepting the electronic communications of the person using the stolen laptop. Why does this matter? This matters because even though Susan Clements Jeffrey bought a computer system that was stolen, probably knew it was stolen, was probably a criminal, Judge Walter Rice in this particular case basically said that she had a right to privacy. In short, simply because she was maybe involved in some criminal activities doesn't mean that she has no rights whatsoever. You just can't log into the computer system and start embarrassing the woman. You just can't do that. But if the people that were running Absolute Software, i.e. the school, Absolute Software, law enforcement, were simply just getting the location and the IP address information, probably would have been all good in the hood. And this kind of establishes a really, really, really bright line in the sand whenever we're talking about cybercrime laws. And that really bright line in the sand is you can get IP address, you can get MAC address information. There's a difference in the legal world in what we call signaling versus content data. Signaling data would be data that your computer system gives away freely to the network, to the internet as a whole, to allow those packets to flow because the space must flow. So those packets, they're going from point A to point Z. That header information, no reasonable expectation of privacy. You literally have to share that with absolutely everybody. You don't know who they are. You can't get permission from them. They can't get permission from you. That's the way the internet works. That's what we call signaling data. Content data is the actual data that's inside the packet. It's the actual data that's stored on that computer system. So there is a difference between signaling and content data. Another interesting story for completely wildly different reasons. In 1999, the World Trade Organization website had a DOS attack from the hippie coalition. It was a different time, ladies and gentlemen, back in 1999. We had people that were attacking the G7 and all these different things. And literally, we had groups like the hippies coalition, and they had their own effing server online. Like it had an IP address and like a physical server and everything. At any rate, the hosting service Connexon saw this attack coming against the World Trade Organization and then literally reflected it right back at the eHippies web server, thus knocking that server off just through a simple mod rewrite rule. Connexon was not prosecuted. Not the same as this being legal, by the way, but they weren't prosecuted, which brings up an interesting question. Do you think that criminals are actually going to go to court and be like, Your Honor, I know that we were launching an illegal attack against the World Trade Organization, but they took our illegal attack and they used the illegal attack against us, Your Honor? Okay, probably they would. I don't know. Defenses are weird these days, but we're seeing a lot of this same type of thing. Now, if you're looking at this from the perspective of like, is there any kind of big legal thing to come from it? No. What you should be taking from this is generally hackers aren't going to show up to court to try to defend themselves, which brings us to this case. Microsoft court order dealing with the botnet. This was a lawsuit in 2010, and you may think that it's old. Totally not old in legal world. It's totally not old at all in the legal realm, right? You know, when I started invoking, you know, Justice Blackstone from UK, then you're probably getting a little bit old. But 2010, that's like baby, right? That's just like right there, right? So in this particular situation, the courts issued an ex parte injunction. An ex parte injunction means the party is not present, which means the criminal is not present. So the judge ruled that there needed to be some ways to degrade the botnet, the Wallet botnet, and the courts, using the U.S. Marshals in coordination with Microsoft, were able to quote unquote significantly degrade the functions of the botnet. They did this through DDNS takeover, and then also this magical thing called other technical measures. And by other technical measures, that means that Microsoft, being Microsoft, could literally reach into any of these computer systems that were compromised and just simply shut off the botnet. Now, if you're looking at this law, if Microsoft is reaching into your computer without your permission to shut down a bot that's on your computer, does that sound legal to you? I mean, seriously, does that think it might be violating the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act? Yeah, it probably is, actually. However, in this particular case, it was an injunction, a lawful injunction by a member of the courts. All right, so that gives you a little bit of information. The other thing that I've been working on for quite a bit over the years is this idea and definition of computer systems, whether or not they're protected, and how that relates to maritime law. Now, in maritime law, you can open fire without a declaration of war on two different groups, without a declaration. One of those groups is slave traders. Now, some of you are going to say, well, there's not many slave traders out in the seas anymore. And you are so wrong, like depressingly wrong. Like, holy hell, like maybe Stephen King's The Stand needs to happen. It's that depressing. Still have slave trade happening. Still to this day, it is still a thing. But that's not what we're talking about. The other thing we're going to be talking about, as Megan just pointed out, is pirates. You can totally just open fire on pirates, you know. And further, the more important thing about opening fire on pirates is if you have a scurvy pirate, and let's say that that pirate takes over Jeff Bezos's yacht, right? And they're like trolling in Jeff Bezos's yacht. They're like, I got a boat. I got my dinghy and my flippy floppies, right? And they're rolling in Jeff Bezos's boat. And they roll up on an oil tanker and they're ready to sink that oil tanker or take that oil tanker on. And that oil tanker just pulls out this huge cannon and sinks Jeff Bezos' boat, which has been taken over by a bunch of scurvy pirates. And they send it down to the bottom of the briny sea. All right. Can Jeff Bezos sue that shipping company for sinking his yacht the pirates had taken over? Nope. Can't. Because that boat is officially not Jeff Bezos's boat. So in maritime law, it's kind of interesting. I was working with SIPRI, the Stockholm Institute for Peace, brought a bunch of people from around the world who were working on maritime laws. It was one of those weird things that nothing came of it, but it was awesome because they paid for my flight to Stockholm. At any rate, the same thing kind of applies with international law with computers. Because once a hacker has taken over a computer system, it basically means that that computer system is no longer that individual's computer, and we can treat it very similar that we can in maritime law. There we go. By the way, if you want to think of something really funny, I don't know why I think this is funny, but truckers speaking trucker talk with a pirate accent. Like, 10-4, me good buddy. Yeah, I just don't know why I find that hilarious, but I'm not caffeinated. Stimulants slow me down, damn it. It's a characteristic of my ADHD, but we're going to get some caffeine a little bit later. I'll cool off. But right now, I just want to do this entire class in pirate speak. Yeah, so flying spaghetti monster and all. So with all of these different things, we kind of need to step back and we need to look at it from the perspective of our warning banners. Yet again, let's kind of sidestep a lot of these issues and let's just set up a warning banner that's pretty explicit. We talk about permission. You have a number of technologies on your warning banner. Let's just say OpenVPN that are literally to somebody's like, I dare you to do it in pirate speak. I'm not that dumb. Just watch the numbers crater. No. All right. So if you look at OpenVPN, if you look at Microsoft Network Access Protection scripts, you can put a bunch of things inside of the VPN connection that checks the integrity of the security profile of that system that's connecting. It can verify that it's up to date on patches. It can verify that AV is up to date. It can verify from a geolocation perspective where that particular computer system is. We can do all of these things as part of our VPNs. These are all attributional technologies, right? The reason why I like to bring this up is if we look at all of this way, right? If we look at, zero trust, look at all the things that zero trust is doing these days. It's attribution. It's not even like hacking back or anything. It's just validating the security of systems that connect in. We put that in our warning banner and say, hey, we're going to track your location. We're going to track your patches. We're going to make sure your system's up to date. The attackers aren't going to read EULAs. They're just going to simply join in and just roll with it because they don't care at all, right? So you totally can use this to gather information about an attacker's computer system. Also, let's talk a little bit about your intellectual property. In fact, let me use an example of Black Hills Information Security, all right? We're a pen testing company, okay? And we do standard pen testy stuff like all the time, all right? So let's say hypothetically, hey, I am not that John Strand, by the way, hens. Do you guys want me to give you my presentation of John Strand versus John Strand a little bit later? Because sometimes I have to show a difference between myself and that absolute amazing gentleman who is not me. So we'll do it during one of the breaks or at the end of class. How about we do it at the end
I had
of
to
class?
come back in. Yes.
Yeah, it's going to happen.
1,000 times. Yes.
Do it. All right. So when we're looking at our intellectual property, let's say hypothetically, someone hacks into Bank of America. No big reason. I'm not picking on Bank of America whatsoever. I'm not doing any of it. Just Bank of America is just a random organization that I pulled out of thin air. All right. An attacker breaks into Bank of America and then they pivot from Bank of America and they hack Black Hills Information Security. That could happen. Absolutely. Right. They break into Black Hills Information Security and they steal some intellectual property, i.e. some of the malware that we create at Black Hills Information Security. They pull this malware back to their intermediary system, bam, their pivot system, and then they launch it. And it connects back to Black Hills Information Security. Bank of America sees that connection callback to BHIS. And the question is, what happens then? There's actually two separate questions. The first question is, do you think Bank of America might sue Black Hills Information Security if they see that connection coming in? Yeah, they absolutely could, right? They absolutely could. Would they be successful in doing so? Yeah, most likely not. Because remember, the American judicial system is all blind. Money has no impact on the outcome of things in the American judicial system. See, here's how this thing's going to go. We're going to get on a phone call with the lawyers of Bank of America. And they're going to say, hey, we've got this thing that's connecting back to your environment. And I could say, okay, we have a couple of things that we need to talk about. First, your organization is compromised. Your organization was compromised and it compromised my organization. And that thing that's beaconing back is my intellectual property. So I want to ask you, why is my intellectual property on your servers? So if this actually does go to court, there's two questions that you're going to have to answer in front of a court of law. One, what the hell, Bank of America, you got compromised? And two, why is my IP on your servers? The reason why I like to use this kind of weird, contrived analogy, straw man thing, is because I really want you to think about it in terms of playing it out in your head. It's like, well, if we put all these files or we put these callback things and then an attacker pulls and detonates it from somebody else's environment, they could come and sue us. That's entirely possible. You can be sued at any time for any reason. But the question is, can you be sued successfully? And more importantly, in this scenario, most likely not. And Fakinator brought it up. 3, they potentially have to publicly disclose a data breach, right? So how can all of this go wrong? It absolutely can go wrong. Trust me. I've been doing this for like 15 years. I've seen it go wrong. Mistakes and unintended consequences. Easily accessible malware. I had one of our customers, I mentioned this the other day, where we loaded up some trackback software on a share for them. We said, do not put this on your publicly accessible web server. Put it in a disallowed, no index, no follow directory on your web server so random users aren't going to stumble upon it. Instead, our customer put it right on their main website, and we had literally thousands of trackbacks of a whole bunch of their legitimate customers. And then they came to us and they're like, so can you guys use this information to find where the real attacker is? No, that was stupid. They should not have done that, right? Full attacks on an attacker's IP address. I'm going to talk about this more a little bit later. But whenever you attack an attacker's IP address, that gets into the pirate analogy, right? Even though I'm talking about international maritime law and CIPRI, it's still generally a bad idea to hack into somebody else's server that you think an attacker has compromised. There can definitely be situations like crashing servers or getting persistent long-term access. So that's why in this class, we break things up into annoyance, attribution, and attack, so we can set these lines. So what are some hallmarks of legality? One of the first things is have a discussion. Go to a class like this one, right? You can totally go to court and you could say, I took this random free class on YouTube that some strange guy in South Dakota was giving. And they're going to be like, that sounds totally legit to me. That sounds like, yeah, that sounds like the real deal there, right? Document and plan what it is you want to do, what your goals and objectives are. We're going to use Honey users, and this is our goal and objective. We're going to create Honey documents. This is a goal and objectives of these, like we want to set that up. The big thing is do not hide what you are doing, okay? The reason why is if you're looking in the world of cybersecurity, all of it in the legal space is so incredibly new that there's not a lot of case law to go after. And if you're hiding what you're doing, if you're deleting documents, you're not having meetings, you're not talking to your legal team, and it goes to court, then it's definitely going to look like you knew that this was wrong, and they will use that against you in a court of law. Also, this sounds goofy, but don't be evil. Just don't, please. Now, why would I say things like, hey, don't be evil? Let's talk about what evil is. Like persistent long-term access to a hacker's computer is kind of evil without a warrant. Getting access to an attacker's computer and just deleting sensitive files, kind of evil, right? Getting access to an attacker's computer and just sharing their browser history with everyone on the open internet. Incredibly satisfying, but evil. You shouldn't do that, right? You just shouldn't do those things at all. So that's what we need to do. Brian just said, can I set up my network so some strange 3-letter friend decides to mess with me, they get legally hit with all the stuff? Yeah, you totally can. That is entirely possible to do. So this is a law that I had some input. It never got signed, but I like to use this because it's a way to humble brag. It's like, well, here's a law I helped work on. But it never came to pass, but it at least gives you an idea from a legal perspective in the United States, kind of the framework that people are trying to establish some laws. And we're going to talk about all of this. And then at the end, I'm going to kind of shoot this whole thing down just completely. All right. So for the record, I'm a pretty strong believer in active defense. I'm not so much a believer in strike back, right? We've talked about this already. There is a difference. We will be looking at poison and venom again. We'll be looking at various callback mechanisms as it relates to cyber deception and active defense. Sir, you may be a believer, but are you a believer? Honestly, if anyone ever asks you if you're a believer, look down and whisper, no. All right. Poison. We talk about poison as something that an attacker has to interact with, right? They've got to reach into the environment. They've got to steal something. They've got to access a web element that's hidden from the general public, preferably going through a logon banner, all of those different things. We want to deal in poison. All right. We have to. Once again, think of poisonous frogs, poisonous plants. This can apply to IT as well. Then once it triggers, like, you know, some people, when they listen to Unskinny Bop, Unskinny Bop, 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 Bop. Actually, Poison was pretty awesome. Let's be honest. I mean, I don't know if you were there in the 80s, but Poison was a pretty big deal. Because, you know, they got to give us something to believe in. All right. Venom is where we're actually striking back, right? That's where we're really, I am so sorry. Somebody just said, no, I've got that song stuck in my head. Let me help you out with that. Let me help you with that. Over here on the YouTubes, the Discords, we've got the solution for the Unskinny Bop brain thing. Oh, Belle Biv DeVoe. That girl is poison. There you go. How's that? How's that? Is that getting it out? Is that cleaning the poison out? Yeah, Belle Biv DeVoe, clean that stuff out. That's what you got to do. Yeah, there you go. See? Happy to help, Flakinator. Happy to help. That's not any better. All right. So back to the slides. Venom. It's usually injected. Think of a snake, think of a platypus, and IT be the equivalent of attacking an attacker. And many attacker systems are just actually other victims' computer systems that are out there, right? Yeah, in that particular situation, you're breaking the law to catch a lawbreaker, and that's just not cool. Actually, it's really cool. It's really incredibly cool, but it's against the law. And like getting arrested for cyber crimes is not cool. Just for the record, if you think you do cyber crimes and the FBI is going to show up and they're literally going to be like, oh, you're a hacker, we're going to make you a hacker for the government. That shit doesn't happen anymore. All right. It happened a few times, turned out poorly, doesn't happen anymore. It just really doesn't. Yeah, but it does happen in the movies. Good point. Good point. I stand corrected. All right. So let's go through and let's start basically reading this entire law to you, right? Congress determines the use of active cyber defense techniques, when properly applied, can also assist in improving defenses and deterring cyber crimes. Yes, this gets into this thing called broken windows. The broken windows theory of laws is that if somebody is in a neighborhood and there's lots and lots of broken windows, there's a perception that there's a low risk to committing crimes. And therefore, in those neighborhoods, you're going to see more crimes. Broken windows, no one's checking. I'm going to break more windows, and then I'm going to rob places. And we're just going to, let's switch to completely different analogies. Let's go to like, Sublime, right? The song about the LA riots, right? Once you start having crimes, the first thing we do is hit the liquor store. And it just keeps going, right? Now, if you look up anything about broken windows and the theory as it relates to laws, and more importantly, the implementation of the broken windows theory of law enforcement, its actual enforcement is racist, like super duper racist. Read the Wikipedia article. It's an absolute train wreck, because once they started looking at broken windows, they were like, you know what else? Let's just start pulling over black people constantly. And not good. Not good at all. Not good at all. So it's one of those theories that kind of just like, whoops, got used for bad things, right? But that's what we're talking about. If attackers now believe that there is a heightened risk, yes, it does happen, somebody's Heine. If there's a heightened risk of them getting caught for breaking the law, they're less likely to actually breaking the law. Computer defenders should also exercise extreme caution to avoid violating the law of any other nation where the attacker's computer system may reside. I love that too. That's absolutely fantastic. All right. Yeah, I'm almost going to read the whole damn law to you. I'm sorry. The exceptional use for attributional technology. It's talking about what applies and what doesn't apply. And it's saying that attributional technology is okay. It says this section shall not apply with respect to use of attributional technology in regard to a defender who uses a program, code, or command to attributional purposes that beacons or returns locational or attributional data in response to cyber intrusion to identify the source of the intrusion. So this is weird. Whenever I was kind of helping with this, I was getting lots and lots of phone calls from like congressional aides. And usually when I'm working with like Congress or anybody like that, I don't want to know the congressman or woman that they're working for because I'm probably going to be flaming pissed off about that. But in this situation, we were going through and we were talking about it. And I swear to God, they were recording the conversation because this is almost verbatim what I was talking about. So let's talk about how that applies. A program, code, or command originated on the computer of the defender, but is copied or removed by an unauthorized user. That's poison, right? That's poison. The attacker gets access to it, steals it, and then that beacons back. The program or code or command does not result in the destruction of data or the result of an impairment in the essential operating functionality of the attacker's computer system. The only thing it's going to do is beacon back. That's it, right? Why is this okay? Or why is this possibly even good? Because basic IP address location information can be tracked. Going back to Susan Clements Jeffrey, IP address or geolocational information in an effort to track it down. Going back to Jerome Hackenkamp, we're merely getting information about his computer system, MAC address and IP address, and not violating the privacy of the potential lawbreaker in that particular situation. And with this, like if I ever like to have to defend someone in court, this is going to be super duper easy. If I get on the stand and they're like, Mr. John, explain to me why you think it's okay that this document beacons back. I just simply hold up my phone. I'm like, because my phone and your phone and almost every email you get is beaconing back constantly. You have trackers in your web browser. You have trackers in your email. You have trackers on your phone constantly. The cell phone companies are tracking you. It's literally everything everywhere is tracking you all the effing time. We spent all these years coming up as human beings afraid of Big Brother and big government, and we literally handed everything over to large corporations. So I'm not going to be on trial in this situation. I'm putting the system on trial. It's going to be Microsoft. It's going to be Google. It's going to be Apple. They're doing attribution constantly. We can literally run a scenario where we are using the exact same techniques and the exact same tracking capabilities against adversaries. All right. More definition. The term attributional data means any digital information such as logs, files, text strings, timestamps, malware, identifiers, usernames, internet protocol addresses, and metadata. Excellent. They're defining these things. Back on track. Establish attribution of criminal activity to share with law enforcement or U.S. government agency responsible for cybersecurity. If this was a movie and I said this is about the time that there would be like a Hans Zimmer drop in the music where it would go boom, and then it would get really ominous, like doon, 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 doon. And you'd be like, something's up. There's an axe murderer around the corner. Yes, there is. It's coming. Wait for it. You'll see it when it comes. So what can we still do? All these things are awesome. We can do word web bugs, geolocation apps, callback PDFs, callback XLS, HTML code to prevent, detect scraping, honeypots, whole bunch of different types of honeypots. I saw someone earlier mention entrapment. You can't do entrapment unless, of course, you're law enforcement, at which point, yeah, that you don't want to do you don't want to do entrapment. But setting up honeypots is not effing entrapment, right? Like entrapment is literally where law enforcement goes up to somebody and says, hey, do you want to commit a crime? Yeah? Come on and commit a crime. And then they arrest you for it. That is entrapment. What we're talking about here are just simply things that call back. Somebody can't go to court and be like, Your Honor, sure, I broke into that computer system. I did. but I did it because those documents that I sold were so sweet and so enticing. There's just no way that any human being could ever leave those documents alone. It's like sweet Turkish delight. I just couldn't leave it alone at all, Your Honor. That's not entrapment. Totally not entrapment at all. Doesn't apply. Digital code signing certificates, checking for certificate revocation lists, right? Callback videos. Most videos, you have the capability to where the video can call back to see if there's a higher resolution version of that video. Is nice for us to be able to track videos that are stolen. Now we're getting into some other things. Disrupt continued unauthorized activity against the defender's network. Monitor the behavior of an attacker to assist in developing future intrusion prevention cyber defense techniques. Still not terrible. You can still do these things. Intentionally exceed the level of activity required to perform reconnaissance on an intermediary computer to follow the attribution of the origin. That means we can use things like Shodan, show enough, where we can research the IP address to figure out who owns that IP address, what services are on that IP address. We aren't attacking said IP address. We're just doing a little looky-loo and a little checky-check on that IP address. Intentionally results in intrusive or remote access to an intermediary computer. Intentionally results in the persistent disruption of a person. In short, you can't hack the computer. You can do some research. You can do some basic Shodan stuff. You can look, but you can't touch. You can touch, but you can't taste. You cannot go down to the point where you're trying to gain access to that particular computer system. Yep. I'm still reading to you. And the reason why is, remember whenever the music got ominous with foreshadowing? This slide. Take a look down at the bottom. This last paragraph. Additionally, this bill requires reporting to the FBI-led National Cyber Investigative Task Force before taking active defense measures, which will help law enforcement ensure defenders use the tools responsibly. The bill also requires voluntary review process through the FBI task force that individuals and companies could utilize before using active defense, which will assist defenders in conforming to federal law and improving. Oops. Yeah. We got to the point where it's like, hey, we're going to document this law to codify this right that you already have, but we're going to require the government to do approval and notification. So I have friends in the FBI. FBI still holds my clearances. And I can tell you that the FBI was planning on just telling people, do not do this. Because if they have to approve absolutely everything, then they're totally just going to tell people, don't do these things. So in the process of trying to create a law that would give people a right, and it had to be a right that has to be approved by the FBI, they were literally taking that right away. So this is about the point where I kind of was like, oh, shadows. All right. So disrupting and monitoring an activity seems like a good idea. There's also a line in there about well, you can disrupt the attackers. But the thought process would be that we're only going to target the bad guy or the bad services or the bad things. The problem is it's really, really hard to find the real hacker, much like where's Waldo? So spot the hacker. Hint, she's wearing a hoodie. Good luck. It's very difficult to differentiate between a good process and a bad process. And degrading an attacker system may degrade a victim's computer system as well. If you monitor the attacker's computer system, you're also going to run into a situation that you may be monitoring data that you have no right to monitor on that system. Point is, stay off the attacker's computer system as much as possible. So here's the FBI. It says notification requirement for the use of active cyber defense measures. A defender who uses active defense measure under the preceding section must notify the FBI Joint Task Force and receive a response from them acknowledging receipt of the notification before using the measure. You saw it coming, right? I mean, you had to see it coming. I just hate this because you know that somebody that's writing these laws are like, sure, let's have the FBI do this. It's not like they're going to like overwhelm the entire effing FBI with cyber defense, like hackback active defense requests. That sucked. I had nothing to do with this part, by the way. Somebody else did. It's a bad idea. So people talk about attribution. And we have people that say that attribution is really, really hard and the bad guys will detect all these things. And I'm okay with that, right? Because I've done hot nation state on nation state action. Woo woo. And one of the rules that we said, and I've talked about this already, is don't get effing caught. Do not get caught. That is the rule. And if I was on an op and I thought that they had deception, and if I thought that they had attributional technology, more than likely, I'm going to be told to stop and disengage as much as possible, right? That was literally what I was told many times whenever the risk got too hard. Attribution does have issues, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's worthless. And the thing that bothers me is people go full Homer Simpson. They're like, well, that looks like it might be hard, so I'm just going to do it half-assed, because doing it half-assed and mediocre is easier, right? So when you're dealing with an attacker and they see this stuff, trust me, the attackers are going to slow down. So we desperately need to get away as we're moving into this next section, and we need to get away from this whole line of hacking back. Instead, we need to focus on the wonderful range of options that are all currently legal to everybody that is listening to this presentation, regardless of whether or not you're in the United States or you're in Europe or wherever you are. It's legal to do all of these different things. However, we are going to cross a line, and I'm going to tell you when we cross that line where we will absolutely need a warrant. All right. So let's talk about some attributional technology, and let's start by talking about Tor. It is very, very difficult for us to have a really good, solid conversation about all of this without discussing Tor at some length. All right. So whenever we're looking at Tor, this is a case that I was involved with Capital One. The attacker was using IP Predator while breaching Capital One, and was using Tor and all these different things. And Thompson, or Erratic, she was basically doing hacking stuff, going on a Slack channel, telling all of her friends that I was doing, hey, I'm doing illegal hacking stuff. Her friends were like, you should be careful doing that illegal hacking stuff. She said, I just did more illegal hacking stuff, downloaded a bunch of illegal hacking data. And she said one screenshot showed Thompson's alleged message sent over Twitter, direct message. Once again, don't ever do crimes and admit to them on Twitter. All right, just don't, right? I basically strapped myself with a bomb vest, effing dropping Capital One's docs and admit it. I want to distribute those buckets, I think, first. There are SSNs with full names and dates of birth. Well done. Well done. But this is an excellent case. Let's say, hypothetically, just throwing this out there, that Erratic didn't announce this on a Slack channel. If Erratic didn't announce this on Twitter, if Erratic didn't do all of these things, she probably would have gotten away with it. She would have gotten away with it. But there are allegedly, by the way, it was really weird working this case, because the defense is like, sure, she said these things, but she's crazy. It was just so effing weird. It was like this bizarro universe. All right. So why do we want to do attribution? Simple. We want to get the bad people. However, if you're being attacked by a nation state, getting the bad people might be kind of hard because of diplomatic immunity. So why would we do this? Well, it's good to know what they are after. It's also really good to try to understand what they're after, and that will help you develop much better, robust defenses if you're getting attacked by some general script kiddie, or if you're getting attacked and surprise, it's Vladimir Putin coming after you. Because if Russia or China or the NSA, let's be honest, this is a global class. Sorry, they're doing some construction. I don't know. Could you all hear that? You guys hear that? All right. Well, if you don't hear it, and I'm just going to keep rolling. What? All right. So we want to get these bad people. Also, if you actually see, as like I said, as an attacker, that attributional things are in play, it's going to change what you're doing. So some good attackers for initial attack and compromise, they're going to use Tor, and you have to get past using Tor, because So many people are like, well, you just can't use this attributional stuff because if they're using Tor, then it's not going to make any difference at all. So I'm just going to go over to my InfoSec dying hole and I'm going to die over there because there's nothing we can do. That sucks. Don't be that crazy, sad straw person that I just created right now in this class for us to go over. So let's look at Tor. So with Tor, very, very few penetration testers use Tor. We've got a number of other things that we do. Ron Gula had a great presentation talking about detecting pen testers in there as well. So they might be going through the cloud through multiple different relays, such as Tor, bouncing through a botnet, but there's probably going to be some level of indirection and misdirection in play to confuse and bewilder you in your ability to detect them as well. So let's talk a little bit about how Tor works. You set up Tor on your system. A lot of times you'll use some type of proxy tool that will proxy your traffic from your computer system entering into the Tor network. It'll hit multiple different Tor nodes, and then it'll hit an exit node and pop out. So the source IP address looks like it's the exit node, all right? So actually trying to track back the full path to where the original system is can be difficult in some circumstances, as long as the attacker does absolutely everything correct and does not screw up whatsoever at all. So Tor is not just used by browsers. We can run a lot of different hacking tools, running it through tools like a SOC 5 proxy going through proxy chains. Then we can run Nmap scans going through it as well. We can tunnel Nessus and Metasploit. We do something similar with this. We got a tool called IP Ricochet, where we bounce all of our different packets off of cloud servers, where we fragment it from DigitalOcean, from Amazon, from Google Cloud Compute, all these different places, right? But an attacker can do this with Tor. If it's done right, great, albeit slow. Yeah, it's kind of great. If it's not done correctly, there's really a good chance of finding out who is attacking you and what they are doing. So I'm just going to go through this really, really quick. Whenever you're running Tor, right? If you're running Tor on a local system, you're not setting it up as a routing point. It's going to wrap the TCP connect function. All right. The TCP connect function. Remember that. All right. TCP connect. So when Nmap pings to identify if a system is alive, we're going to go through which of these goes through the TCP connect function. The first one is here. We have this one right here. It says IP bill local to paul.com, ICMP echo request. That's a standard ping. Is that standard ping going to go through the TCP connect function? Nope. Why won't it go through TCP connect? Why won't it go through TCP connect? Anything on that? It's not TCP, says hell of a thing. That's very right. It's not TCP. So that means also this timestamp request is not going to go through either. So right off the bat, two packets that we send, the ICMP packets, are not going to go through the TCP connect function. You're smart ones. You're doing good. All right, next one right here. This one is an ACK packet. Now that is a TCP packet. Is that going to go through TCP connect? Is that going to go through TCP connect? Anyone? Oh, wait. Let's slow down. If I'm making a TCP connect to a system, what is my first packet? What is the first packet in a TCP connect? A SYN. Is that a SYN packet, folks? No, it's not. It's not. So that brings us to the last one I want to talk about. We have a SYN packet. And finally, is this SYN packet going to go through TCP connect? No one's answering now. No, it's not either. See, the best part about this is you can fire up Nmap and you can go through proxy chains and bounce it through a SOC 5 proxy and then connect it into Tor. Not a single one of the packets for the entire Nmap scan. If you're running it as root, not one of them will go through TCP connect. The reason why is because with Nmap, let's go man Nmap. Quick, to the man pages. Right. So if we go through and we look for TCP connect right here, this is the TCP connect scan, and it literally makes its full connect scan through the standard TCP connect function. If you're running Nmap as just a standard root user, not a single packet's going to go through the TCP connect function. The point I'm trying to talk about this is attackers can be stupid, and they can be very, very brazen because they're very rarely hunted themselves, and they make mistakes as well. So a standard SYN scan, not a single packet's going to go through. This is the right way to do it. You do proxy chains, Nmap, no pings, a full TCP connect packet, and do one port at a time or a handful of different ports, right? So I want to share with you another story that for a case that I worked with, demonstrating how hackers are stupid. So we had this one case we were working on law enforcement. It was a kidnapping case. This particular individual, I think he was in his 30s. I can't remember. But he was in his 30s, and he had abducted this girl that I believed was 16 years old. They had been in a relationship together, and he was a very, very smart technical person. He basically did development for BSD, kernel level developer for applications using BSD. So not a technical idiot, right? So he disappears with this girl, and he has a blog, and his blog is all about how laws are stupid whenever it comes to age and all of these different things. It's every bit as creepy as you would think it would be. And I'm not going to get into all the stuff that was in his blogs, but let's just say it was pretty effing bad. And he was using Tor, and he was using a browser. I think it was called Dillo. This is a very, very, very super basic browser. So he was going to his blog site. He was going through Tor. He was using Dillo as his browser to check and make sure that his blog was rendering properly, and it was doing all these things. And yeah, he was doing the whole "come at me, bro, I'm on 7 proxies or behind 7 proxies." And he was doing everything right, like chef's kiss. Very, very, very well done. Well, we got a warrant, we got a subpoena, and we were able to get the logs off of that web server that he was using. And I'm sitting there looking at the logs on the web server, and I'm going through it, and I'm like, well, this is my IP address here. And I got on the phone with the law enforcement agents. I'm like, wait a minute. What's your IP address? And they're like, well, I'm in Florida. I'm like, okay, good. What's your IP address? I'm up in New Hampshire. Great. This is you here. And I noticed there was only like 10 separate unique IP addresses that were accessing this individual's blog. One of them was coming out of Tor. So that was the one he was using to basically write his blog, post his blog. But then there was this one weird IP address that was showing up with standard Internet Explorer. What was happening was he was surfing to the website through Tor, writing his blog post with Dillo, but then he would visit his website from another computer system in the house to make sure that it rendered properly. And this is just said, dang, nobody's reading his blog. Yep. We were able to filter out everybody. We got that one IP address that we could not account for. We were able to get a warrant. We went to the ISP. We got the location of where that IP address was. Don't worry about it. They were able to actually go to that house and arrest him. And it turns out that the girl, her parents got a divorce. She was living with her father. She went and lived with her mother with her BSD development stupid boyfriend who was in his 30s. So my point on all of this is, when we're looking at Tor, when we're trying to understand things like this, we can't look at Tor as like this ironclad thing that no one can get past. You absolutely can get past Tor. And that brings us to honey tokens. This is a pretty easy lab. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to honey tokens, right? Right here are Canary tokens. And you're going to go to this website, and I want you to try some of these different honey tokens that are out there. There's a number of them that are available. You have Word document tokens and Word web bugs. I want you to see which of these tokens work for you. So this is going to take us up to and through the break. This doesn't take very long. We'll probably resume at 20 after. We do actually have a lab for this. It basically is the Canary tokens lab right here. And literally the Canary tokens lab says, hey, go generate some tokens. So this is the lab that we are doing. Excuse me, we are doing Canary tokens, and we will resume at 20 after. There you go. All right, let's get to it. Ryan, sir, can you do me a favor? Let's kick out some jams, sir. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. Hope you enjoyed those wonderful tunes from No Bandwidth. Be sure to follow No Bandwidth. Bo Bullock's Twitter account is the way to go, Daft Hack. Just playing around with some of these, some really fun stuff, of course, that you can open up. By the way, I wanted to walk through some of these different ones. I don't know which one of them worked for you guys, which ones didn't. I was just happy that it actually stayed up through the entirety of this. And boy, my video got really, really, really jumpy there. I don't know what's going on. I blame Ryan's internet, to be honest with you. I think I'm just going to blame Ryan's internet at the moment. But at any rate, there's all kinds of super cool stuff in here. And I want to go through the use case of some of these different techniques and what you can do. So let's go through them just kind of quickly. Just a web bug URL token is basically anybody that views a specific web page. You can put that specific bug in that website. Now, one of the problems with this, though, is how you actually get it to the attacker. Once again, you would want to put it on disallow, no index, no follow, like a fake admin portal, a fake OA portal, something like that, to kind of like trigger it if somebody is actually going to a part of the website that they shouldn't go to. A DNS token is literally that. It's just a DNS host name that will fire. Now, AWS key, these ones right here, AWS key is your logon certificate and Entra ID logins. These are the ones that we're starting to see a lot more on our internal and external penetration tests. And how they're actually being used is interesting. We're seeing customers that are generating these like honey tokens, AWS keys, logon certificate, Entra ID logins, and they are putting those publicly or in their internal GitHub repositories. Now, when my team is doing a pen test and they find these exposed and they try to use them, it lights us up. If we're on the inside of the environment, it also lights us up and it gives them a warning that we're on the inside of their network. Super cool. Sensitive command token is literally just that, right? So I can put in my email address and I could put in something like whoami.exe and I could put in a note, right? And this generates a registry file, like right here. You can look at this at any rate. If we look at the registry file and I open up said registry file, see if I can open it up in Notepad. Oh, it's trying to open it up in my Windows system. Let's go ahead and do this. Yeah. Anyway. But what happens with it is open with. Just give me a second. Just getting it open. Come on, text edit. That's what I want. Don't really want to do anything with that. Got it. Thank you. And I'm looking for Notepad or text edit. QRST. There we go. Just give me a second. Here it is. And we're going to swap out of that. We're going to pull this down. So this is literally just a text file that you import into your registry. And what it does is it watches the process. And then anytime someone tries to run the command, who am I, right here, it's going to make a connection back up to the Canary token server and let you know that this has actually been fired. So that's really cool. So you can literally, it's not actually changing that executable. What it's actually doing is watching the process to see if a process called who am I is invoked at any time. Word document and Excel spreadsheets, those are pretty much self-explanatory. And you can add all kinds of things into it to get them to fire. Kubernetes config, WireGuard VPN, cloned website. Okay, this one is really, really super cool. So we do this. The domain that we're going to protect is blackhillsinfosec.com. And then we'll do it worked like that. And then it generates the token. So what it does is it creates this JavaScript. So you put this on a web page that is most likely going to be cloned by a attacker, right? They want to do spear phishing. They're going to try to harvest creds. So what they would do is they would harvest a web page that captures user ID and passwords. Then they would shoot an email into your organization, having you come to that, and it looks like a legit site. They insert a user ID and password, and the attacker has that. However, whenever we insert this JavaScript on our website, anytime the attacker clones that website, they're cloning this JavaScript as well. All right. Question is, do viruses not get detected and delete Canary tokens on exe? I don't know what that means. You may have to allow it. Oh, antiviruses. Yeah, but you would have to create an exception for that exe. I've never seen an antivirus. It's possible that they get freaky with it. But with this one, we have the web page. Someone clones it. They're getting ready to spearfish. And this goes back to my gripe and my rant about threat intelligence feeds. This is threat intelligence, except this is threat intelligence of the attacker that's actively cloning your web page right now. Not an attacker that cloned a website or tried to attack someplace else like 2 months ago. It's what's happening right now in your organization that you're actually watching for. Now, what you can do with this one that's pretty cool is you can obfuscate it, right? So we can copy that. It will automatically obfuscate it, which is pretty cool, but you can also take it to like a JavaScript obfuscator. There we go, obfuscator. And there's some online JavaScript obfuscation tools. And some of these obfuscation tools will actually trigger the JavaScript. So that's one. Let's go ahead and try another one. Try another one. There you go. And we'll see if it actually triggers it. And sometimes it takes the server a little bit of time to actually record the results, especially when we have 114 on YouTube and we've got like 120 on the other one. So this hasn't been fired, I don't think. Let's do history on this one. But no, it hasn't been fired yet. And sometimes it does take a little bit of time for this particular token to fire. So that's probably my favorite one out of all of these, right? You also have some additional ones like cascading style sheet, cloned website, trigger an alert when your website is cloned using CSS, a QR code, MySQL dump. Somebody gets access to a database and they pull it off a Windows folder, which we're going to do one a little bit different here a little bit later. Redirect, slow redirect, custom image, Adobe Acrobat. That one almost never works because as soon as you put active content inside of a PDF, it tends to freak out. You can upload your own executable. So if you have something like your own little VPN executable, you can totally just simply create your own custom executable and have it work that way as well. Microsoft SQL Server, SVN, and email addresses. So that is a lot of different Canary tokens that you can play with as you have time and kind of work with them. So very powerful tool. Where's my slides? There we go. Super powerful. And here's the best part. You can run it on their servers, super easy to do, but it does actually go back to canarytokens.org, and that might be a bit of a giveaway. Or what you can do is you can clone the entire website, or you can go to GitHub and you can build the entire website on your own domain. So it's no longer going to Canary tokens. Just give me a second here. I'm going to try something real quick. All right. Can you all still hear me? See if this is still working. All right, cool. Just want to make sure. I just cut my connection to the wireless network to make sure I was only going through the hardwire connection network, because I'm getting a little flickering and I don't know what it is. It doesn't seem like that fixed the problem, but no, I do have some flickering every once in a while. I think what we need is Ryan needs a bigger, more badass computer. That's always the solution though. Anytime I'm doing anything with Ryan, anytime I'm doing anything with Ryan, it's like he needs a better computer for it. So basically everything's going to him. He's merging it all together and then it's getting sent out from there. Have I tried turning it on and off again? All right. So we just did the Canary tokens lab. You can totally make this real. As I mentioned earlier, you can have an open VPN configuration. And in here, you can execute PowerShell, you can execute Python, you can execute standard command prompt on Windows as well. So how would you actually go about doing this? Well, I mentioned robots.txt, and I keep bringing that up because ultimately what our goal is we desperately want to get to this situation where we can put things where an attacker is going to go, but it's not going to be where a standard user is going to go. We want to create a separate distinction between those two. Standard user is not going to go to this place. I'm going to kill my camera because it's pretty flickery right now. And we want, like, this is a place an attacker is going to go. And robots.txt is without question the cleanest possible example of what we can do with that, right? So we put that in. Now, the other thing that you can do with like an executable is you can actually go to the point where you have full on wireless geolocation of an attacker. And there's a command you can run on a Windows computer system that is netshwlan. So you can do netshwlan show networks mode equals BSSID, and that will dump all of the wireless access points that are nearby. Let me see if I don't think I have my team viewer system up anymore. I've got a remote connection. Let me kill parallels. There we go. We might connect to my home computer. Here we go. All right. Oh, it looks like this system rebooted. Here we go. So let me open up a command prompt. I don't know if my Zoom is working there. Let's see if I can make it bigger. Let's go font, and let's kick the font up to 36. There we go. So now you should be able to see that a lot easier. All right. So we can do netsh WLAN show networks. And this is going to show, oh no, I shut off all my wireless interfaces on the computer. Let me get these. This system is hardwired as well. And I actually may have unplugged the interfaces completely. All right, cool. All right, so now if I do SHWLAN show networks, it's going to show me all the wireless networks in my house. All right, so these are all the wireless networks that exist. So what I can do here is I can change its mode, where you can go mode equals BSSID. And what this is giving me now is it's actually giving me the MAC address and the relative strength signal for each one of these wireless networks in my house. Yeah, I'm not that worried. I live out in the middle of nowhere. So with all of this, and also we don't need to war drive. I'll explain that a little bit later. With all of this information, you can actually submit that into someplace like Google, and they can give you a full breakdown of exactly where that wireless access point actually is. And we have a tool a little bit later. We're going to show you how we can actually do this as well. No, not even Weigel. You don't have to go to weigel.net. You don't. So how is Google getting its wireless information where wireless access points are? How is Google doing it? See if anybody gets that. Got a lot of people typing. Yeah, Android phones, right? So what happened with Google is they got into trouble with the cars that were driving around and like taking videos of everybody everywhere. I think the state of California threatened to sue them. So they basically said, F it, we don't need to do that. So what we're going to do is we're just going to grab people's Android information. So you literally have Android devices or anybody that's using Google Maps that's walking around and it's collecting all the wireless access points around you, and it's also getting geolocation information. No, absolutely, Fountain. Think about it. So every time you go to Google Maps and you're like, find me a Starbucks, it's recording your geolocation. And part of that geolocation is also getting the wireless access points as well. So instead of having a van that's doing it, they literally made us be the mules for collecting all of this wireless information. And we can use this to basically track attackers as well. So we talked about cloned websites. We talked about triangulation. So the way that this works is looking at the relative signal strength of all the wireless access points that a computer system can see will come up with a point of triangulation where those different circles overlap. You can use it. So this is a trigger of what it looks like whenever you actually get the email. I don't know if I've gotten any emails from my Honey token yet. Not yet. Canary tokens. So this is what it looks like when it actually triggers. It says that somebody cloned your website. And this, once again, is something that we do constantly at Black Hills Information Security. This is an attack from a number of years ago where somebody was cloning BHIS websites and they were trying to attack us, and we were able to put on an incident map where everyone was. This is my team here in South Dakota. We were actually checking to make sure it was working, but these are actual locations of bad things happening. You can also do the Word docs, as I mentioned. That's really, really, really super cool. Just put them on a compromised system. This was a question that somebody asked. I want to say it was day 2 that somebody asked this question. They were like, well, how can we use this to track an attacker that's compromised a workstation? Can we use these techniques? It turns out you can. So if you have a workstation that is compromised, one of the easiest things that you can do is you can create that Word document, make it enticing in the name, and then you can drop that Word document on the compromised computer system. What would be a good name for a document for you all? What do you think would be a name for like, the attacker would be like, ooh, that sounds juicy. Passwords.doc, right? Absolutely. Financials, payrolls, SSN, paychecks, candy, free candy, right? Invoices, all of those things. If an attacker you believe is on a workstation, ooh, Bitcoin. That's the first time I've heard that one. That would probably go over pretty good, right? And that brings up a huge part of cyber deception and being successful is psychology. So with the Word documents, we get a problem though. I get the IP address of the attacker. Is IP address, geolocation based on IP address, like a super accurate way to track an attacker, right? Is that super accurate? Yeah, probably not really accurate. So right now it says that my IP address is in Nebraska. I am not in Nebraska, right? I am not in Nebraska at all. So what I thought, and I had my brother try this out. My brother is the director of sales here at Black Hills Information Security. Hint, he's actually in Nebraska. And I got to thinking about geolocation based on IP address and how incredibly like inaccurate it actually is. And I got to thinking, why is it so inaccurate? And this is something we did at the last DerbyCon, right? Am I blaming Brian now? Yeah, I'm blaming Brian. And at the last DerbyCon, I was in the middle of the night and I got to thinking about geolocation. And I realized that IP addresses for endpoint systems, for like businesses, hotels, they're handed out via DHCP, Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol. And by kicking out those IPs dynamically, there's absolutely no way an ISP is going to go through the effort to try and track the full geolocation of every single IP address from a pool of admittedly dynamic IP addresses that they're handing out. So I got to thinking about this and I tested a theory, and this is what I discovered. Turns out that that end IP address is not very accurate. However, the second back, so this is the IP address at the bottom, the 74.143.15.100 was really inaccurate. It was like putting us in the middle of Louisville, Kentucky, and we were way down here in downtown. However, I then trace routed and I was able to identify the last routing hop. And the last routing hop was this IP address, 74.142.115.130. All right. And I can do the same thing here. Let's test and see if my theory works here at all. Let's do it this way. Okay. So I'll get my IP address and my geolocation puts me in Nebraska. So now I'm going to try to do an online traceroute tool. There we go. That in there, trace it. I wonder if it's got a space at the front. Yep. Here we go. Let's see if this works. All right, so it's sending packets. I have officially found the slowest online traceroute tool of all time. This is what happens, folks. Whenever you do online demos, you just should never do that. Here we go. Looks like it ended after 13. That ain't cool. Looks like our ISP kind of black holes it a little bit. Well, at any rate. But yeah, whenever it trace routed, it stopped it in the second to last hop was in Sioux Falls. So I guess by ISP is just black holing trace route. That's a bummer. But in this situation of my slides, it didn't. So that's good. It's good to have slides for backups for demos that don't go very well. So what happened is whenever I trace routed to the second to last hop, it got us within half a block of where we were. And that's far more accurate, right? It's not like in the middle of the city. It was literally half a block away. And we were able to say, that's pretty close. That's pretty close. So you can take that IP address tracking information and you can get a lot closer than you would think, not by going to the end IP address, but the one trace route or the one hop back. But it didn't work that well at all for document like Linux document processors. If you're using Canary tokens, it really saves it down to the docx format. And a lot of Linux document viewers don't handle that very well. And we can use Word Web Bugs, which is a different tool that we created that gives us the capability to do that type of tracking. So we already did the Canary Labs. So with Word Web Bugs, this was something that was originally built into Core Impact. Did I tell you the story about Atlanta? I did tell you guys the story about Atlantic City, right? I did on day one. This was the first time I ever used this technique working with law enforcement, right? So yeah, this was the story where we tracked down a girl, actually a guy that had kidnapped a young girl. This was maybe 10, 15 years ago. And we were able to send a Word document to the suspect and we were able to get him to open it and we were able to find out exactly where he was. All right. So, all right. So whenever you see trace route and you get the star sign, it just means that that routing hop is not responding. It doesn't respond to trace route. And there's a number of ways that you can trace route. You can use ICMP, you can use TCP trace route. There's a number of ways. Most places are just using ICMP. And also UDP. You can trace route with UDP as well. So this is generally used for pen testing. And the best part about this technique is it does not use macros. It doesn't use macros at all, which is really, really cool. So this is what it looks like. You open up your Word document in a raw editor like VI, and you put this in. You don't open up the Word document and put it in the Word document. You have to go into VI. That means it's a firewall? No, it doesn't actually. It doesn't. The reason why it does not mean it's a firewall is because it means their connection's faster than your connection. No, sorry, that's next gen hacker 101. All of these hops, they are not all firewalls. All right. So if you look at all of these that have stars, these are not all firewalls. Most of them are actually routers, just standard, very high bandwidth, super powerful routers with very little, if any, firewalling capability whatsoever on that as well. Any specific difference on TCP traceroute and UDP traceroute beside the handshake? Once again, most traceroutes are ICMP or UDP. I think Windows does UDP, and I think that Linux does ICMP. I might be getting those flopped. But there are specific tools that can do TCP trace routing as well. You have to use a tool to actually do that. So why not respond? They're just not responding, honestly. That's it. You can actually disable this in your router. And part of the reason why they don't respond is because they want to hide their router. They want to make sure that attackers aren't able to see it. But you can still find those devices with some other shenanigans as well. Does this get crazy when the attacker is using Tor? It does, but usually whenever you trace route and you hit the exit node, you're done. You're not going to be able to trace route inside of the Tor network on that as well. Yep, and also the Azure infrastructure does not respond as well. Great point. right? So you can put this in, and what this has is a cascading style sheet, and it also has an image source tag. What a lot of people don't know is many of the browsers, or excuse me, many of the word processing tools that are out there, they are absolutely just, they have web browser functionality. Question was, any technique to identify that router? Yes, you would basically you could port scan. There's a number of ways to do it, but one of the ways that you can do it is just basically try different types of trace routing and TCP pings and things of that way. And then you can also do loose and strict source routing to try to hit that router from a different angle as well. But that's a completely different ball of wax. All right. So just, I know I'm going over it quick, but there's a lot to it. If you want to look into it, look into TCP traceroute, and then also look into loose source and strict source routing, where you're using IP options fields to kind of tell your packet what path it's supposed to go. So whenever you open the document, it basically just opens up and it like puts what's inside of the body of the document, where it says what a buggy document. That's all it says. It's not going to show you all of the HTML around it. It's just straight, this is the document. And it does work really, really, really well, right? So it'll respond back many times with the user agent string of the software that was used to open that specific document. So you can see that this is standard Microsoft Windows, Windows 10 system using Office 12. But it goes further than just Microsoft Office and Microsoft Word. This is what it looks like in a database with Word web bugs. It works for AbiWord, LibreOffice Writer, Microsoft Word, and Apple TextEdit as well. So that gives you a lot more flexibility insofar as the supported platforms, rather than just focusing on the docx format. You can go to straight doc. It's an older format style, but it's still readable by all these different things. So word bugs in the enterprise, one of the key components of this is that psychology, right? How do you make an attacker interested in actually opening up that particular document, right? Think of using that word web bug as an incident response tool. This is one of those things that we talked about just briefly a little while ago, giving it a good name that would make the attacker super excited to open up that sensitive document. Also can be used in investigations, threat intelligence. And the best part is you're not violating any laws. It's literally just something in a document that's calling back. It's not persistent access. You're not pulling any information off of that computer. You're just making that document come back to you. This is exactly the same thing as an email. Many emails, whenever you render them and you open up those emails, they have images that are not stored in the email themselves, but they're referenced on some web server out on the internet. You're literally doing the exact same thing that is happening thousands of times a day in most organizations as well. So it's basically like an InfoSec AirTag. That's right. It is literally like an InfoSec AirTag as well. So we can, what do we got? Oh, we're doing good on time. So let's talk about cyber deception on the cheap, right? So we did a web user or a Honey user yesterday, where we showed how you can detect a password spray. So we're going to do this a little bit different, and we're now going to focus on two more labs over the next bit of time. One of them is creating a file audit on your audit policy, and the other one is going to be a Honey share. But these things, when we're talking about a Honey user, we're talking about a Honey share, we're talking about like a Honey file and auditing it on the inside of an environment, we're really starting to look at Active Directory implementations of honeypots out there as well. So there's a bunch of commercial tools that are out there: Symmetria, Clevio, Elusive Labs, Ativo, TrapX. There's a bunch of them, and they're great. I think they're kind of overpriced and super expensive, but a lot of the things that you can do with these tools, as awesome as they are, you can do them on your own for free with the same level of effectiveness. So setting up cyber deception and attribution, we can set this up in most environments, and you can do it in Active Directory in like half a day. Do the exact same thing, quick and dirty. So let's go through some techniques that you can do in Active Directory, and then we're going to take a break and do yet another lab. Active Directory, Honey Admin. All you need to do is create an administrator account. or at least an account that's named as an administrator. In this example, I called it admin ADM administrator. Pretty easy to do. Now, how do you disable an administrator level account without actually disabling that account? Turns out this is actually really important because many of the different internal password spraying tools that attackers and hackers will use are tools that will automatically identify accounts that are disabled and skip those accounts. All right. It'll skip right over them. What you can do is enable that account, but go to its logon hours. This is a basic breakdown of the hours of the day and the days of the week where you can restrict when that account can actually log on. What you do is you blank it out. So the account is active, but they can't ever authenticate to that account because the logon hours are set to 0. How to convince a manager implementing these? Could be cloud-based, doing effective some of these techniques, Honey users. I would recommend start with some really basic ones like a Honey user right before a penetration test, right? Or an internal security assessment. Do it in a limited trial. Don't say, hey, we got to implement this everywhere. Say, I would like to try, someone's trying to find the question. It's not on Discord. It's over in the YouTubes. Yep, it's over in the YouTubes. That's where that question was. So you got to keep up. Got to keep up. We got it. We got a dual screen action going on here. We got Discord. We got YouTube. I'm finally getting used to it. It was a little bit weird having questions coming in from 2 separate areas. But once again, this is a way that you can disable an account without actually disabling the account. You're just basically making it so it can never log in. Then in my example, I just set up Kiwi as a syslog facility to receive the logs. And then I ran a password spray and bang, I can get that alert whenever somebody tries to log in that account. So we already did the Honey user account. So what we're going to do now is the Honey share lab. This is another one of those labs that I absolutely love, but this one I think you're going to like too, because it's kind of weird. So just to give you all a heads up, there's going to be an error that shows up. When you get to that error, you're going to think, well, this lab is broken and John is dumb. Don't go back and see if it actually did its thing. So the goal of this lab is we're going to create a share on our Linux computer system. Then we're going to serve to that share and access a file on that. We're going to go to that share. And then once we're on that share, we're going to log that somebody accessed that share. And we're going to be using Impacket for that. It's going to log the date, the time, the user, the source IP address, and even the password hash of the user that attempts to authenticate. So this is something you would set up in Active Directory. You would have a share. You would wait for the attacker to come in and try to access a bunch of shares. When they access the share, they are totally going to get lit up like a Christmas tree. And how you would do this, an attacker, when they get on an environment, they usually just do like net view. If you're in an Active Directory environment and you run net view, it's going to show you all the shares in the local network. And this share will show up on that local network. So with that, let's get started. We will do the same thing. We will resume at 20 after. We're going to do Honey share, and then we're going to flip around and do yet another lab right after this. Oh, yeah, I forgot. All right, we need the tunes. Hit it, Ryan. All right. And we are back. All right. So let's go do a walkthrough of this HoneyShare, because like I said, I love this lab. Absolutely love it. And the reason why is it just shows you some of the insanity of living in the Microsoft world, right? Let's go to HoneyShare and we'll just get started. We're going to start by opening up an Ubuntu command prompt on the system. Let me resume my sharing. Here we go. There, we got it. Let me pause share real quick. Logged me out. I hope that's not an ominous sign of bad things to come. Go. All right, we're good. Let me reshare my screen. Here we go, resume share. All right, so we're gonna get logged in. So the question is, not a lot of deception in HoneyShare. Am I missing something? Looks like a good tool to log connection attempts and alert, but that's pretty much it. If I was trying to connect it and got an error display, I'd be like, oh shit, it probably logged my connection attempt. Yes, no, maybe so. So let me clarify that a little bit for you, Sir Taps a lot, for Sir Tap a lot. You got to think about what an attacker methodology is going to do. Whenever you're looking at an attacker methodology, they use things like Share Finder and File Finder. And these are tools that allow you to automatically go through and search for shares and search for files across an entire environment. So this isn't one of those things that you look at it like an attacker is going to manually go through and look at every single share and interrogate every share and try to access every share manually. It's going to be an automated process, right? So they're going to invoke ShareFinder. They're going to run ShareFinder across the entire environment, or a tool like ShareFinder. They're going to run it across the entire environment unilaterally. It's the same thing, same concept as Honey users. Sure, you can make a user enticing sounding, but if you have 100,000 user accounts on an environment, you shouldn't expect the attacker to go through and regard each user account individually. So instead, what we're trying to do is we're trying to detect when the attacker is using those automated techniques to go across an entire environment, whether it's doing a password spray internally or they're trying to identify potentially suspicious shares and files. So hopefully that helps make a little bit more sense on what we do here. And this is also like super duper important. These questions are critical because if you don't get these questions, right, if people don't understand, then they kind of lose the context and the importance of what's going on. All right, so I've got Ubuntu. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do ifconfig, just following along the instructions. Got my Linux IP address on my system. I'm going to become root on this system. The password is ADHD. There we go. And let me close that out. There we go. I'll get some of these other questions here in a second. We're going to go to Impacket examples. Paste that in there. And there we go. And then we're going to start Impacket. So we're simply starting Impacket. We're running the Python script SMB server with SMB2 support. Comment is secret, and the name of the folder is secret. It's basically, we're not pulling any punches here. We're just going straight into it, right? And seriously, like whenever you're running ShareFinder or you're running some of these tools, they'll look for specific names and specific things in these folders and these files, right? So it's going to start up and it's going to say, hey, we've got this file parsed. We're ready to go. And now we're ready to jump over to the Windows side. And this is where stuff gets really, really super funky at this point. And this is probably one of my favorite parts of the entire class. We're going to net use and we're going to access that secret server, right? So go ahead and do this. And part of the reason why I set the system up the way it is I actually have some security baked in where you can't do anonymous logons and you can't access shares anonymously, because that was one of the recommendations that I saw for a long time where people were like, well, you need to lock this down on your Windows system so they won't do this. Here's the problem with this entire thing. I go ahead and I run this and I do net use star, which means the next available drive letter working down from Z. We give it, oops, hold on. I got to put in my Linux IP address here. Go towards the right system. Let me go up. So here's my Linux IP 172.28.169. There we go. I'm going to paste that in there. And now we're going to try to access this. Now, this is what absolutely blows my mind. And this is one of those things that I remember when I very first saw this, I was like, well, this is the solution, right? So we basically put in security policies that will stop unauthenticated guest access to different shares. So it says you cannot access this shared folder because your organization's security policies block unauthenticated guest access. These policies help protect your PC from unsafe or malicious devices on the network. Let's get a round of applause for Microsoft. Round of applause. If we can get some happy applauses, golf claps, all of that. That's fantastic. Well done, Microsoft. Well done. We're all proud of you. Because that whole error message would not make a whole lot of sense. Just putting this out there. If somebody were put in the security policy to stop this unauthenticated guest access for our benefit and our protection, but meanwhile, in the background, Microsoft still tries to authenticate to that share. And here you can see the net NTLM v1 hash right here. You can see that we have this authentication request and we still have the password hashes for that particular authentication. So it still works. So once again, whenever we're looking at this through the context of utility, you don't look at it like the attacker is going to look at every single share. You're looking at it through the lens of the attacker is going to attempt to authenticate to every single share, and they're going to attempt to enumerate every file on every single one of those shares as well. So that's HoneyShare. All right, so let's get to some more like stupid blue team tricks. Stupid blue team tricks, infinitely recursive Windows directories. This is one of those ways that just, good God, just seems like it's like the dumbest possible way to stop an attacker from trying to enumerate all the files on a computer system. And a special shout out to Mark Baggett, who helped me get this thing working the way that I wanted it. Didn't need to see that picture. No, the Hasselhoff recursion, not good. So let me show you what this looks like. Let's just do this. Let's go ahead and let's go CD to the top level directory. I'm going to do make dir go away like that. And then I'm going to CD into the go away directory. Now, once I'm inside of that go away directory, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a make link, and we're going to create a soft link called dir1 that comes to the go away directly. So we're going to do mk link /d, mk link. We'll do / D, and we're going to do dir1. Oh, did I mess that up? MK link. Did I mistype it? Oh, I got to put the destination of where it's going to go. Let me do that again. All right, so we got to do this, and then it goes to the go away directory. I'm like, what the hell did I miss? There we go. So now we have a symbolic link for the target of where it's going to go. All right, now let me show you what happens whenever an attacker is recursively searching through all of the subdirectories on a system. So you can do dir space / s, and it's going to try to hit every single recursive directory. But here's the problem. Whenever it hits a soft link like this, it appends the directory name onto it. So if you hit it multiple times, it gets up to, I think, 128 characters, and then it just gives up. It's just done. And this is kind of where I got stuck, and this is really where Mark Baggett was helping me out. So what you can do is you do a second directory. So dir space 1 or dir2 and dir1. Now, whenever you do this, dir space / s, like an attacker recursively like searching through the entire directory, it does this. And it can't, it won't, it don't stop. It just keeps going. So the reason why this is effective is somebody's running ransomware, and ransomware is searching for all of the documents in a file system. and they're going to encrypt all those documents in the file system, or an attacker is automatically recursively searching through a file system. As soon as they get into this, it's going to completely just steal all the CPU resources on that system, and it's going to actually shut down the back door of the attacker as well. So that's just, stupid information security pet tricks. Number one. Now I did this, the first time I did this was in a capture the flag. I was on the red team, and I was on the red team with Paul Asadorian, a bunch of guys from Immunity. Larry Pesci was on the red team initially. And the red team was like, we were all hacking and breaking into Windows 2000 systems with no patches and no no antivirus or nothing. And the blue team was just getting slaughtered, right? And the red team is high five, and they're like, yeah, red team forever, we're cool. And it's literally just the lamest thing ever. Like, none of these systems had any security, and they all had wide open vulnerabilities. And it's like, well, we'll see how the blue team's doing. And the blue team's like, oh, we're all dying. So Larry, myself, and I think Paul eventually, we all decided to go over to the blue team. And we were like, okay, it's time to bring the fire. So what we did is we started doing tricks like this, and it was completely destroying the red team. And that was a lot of fun. That was a really good time. Question was, any way to get alerted when this happens on a system? Yes. In fact, that's going to be the next lab that we're going to do. So what you would do is you would put an alert on access to that file or that folder. And if somebody accesses that folder, it generates an event log. It's called file and object access auditing. And we're going to get to that here in just a little bit. Other tools out there, Deception Toolkit. I saw somebody pop this up the other day. A great tool that'll basically honeypot versions of WhoAmi, NetXE, System Info, and Ver. Common commands that attackers use out there as well. Deploy a deception is a tool that deploys deception across multiple different aspects of an Active Directory environment. Another neat tool. So what's the other one here? There we go. The other one that we wrote, and we're going to have some interns take this over, is CRED Defense Toolkit. And the CRED Defense Toolkit will detect link local multicast name resolution attacks, and it'll also detect Kerber roasting. So what it does is it creates a Kerber roastable service account. So as soon as somebody tries to Kerber roast that account, it generates an alert on that as well. And as Megan pointed out, we also have some weekly free webcasts, and we have an incident response summit that's coming up, and it's free, folks. It's like this, but it's not me. So that automatically makes it better. Right? Somebody was asking about Microsoft Sentinel, and this is a blog that was done by, this is a blog and a webcast that was done by Jordan and Kent on creating cyber detection lures for attribution with Microsoft Sentinel as well. So I already did Deception Toolkit. All right. So a lot of stuff to play with. That's one of the things I used to teach this as a 5-day class, and we compressed it down into a 2-day class. And there's just some tools I just can't run on that as well. There we go. All right, so let's talk a little bit. Oh, no, we got to get into another lab. Oops. So let's go ahead and let's get started on a lab, and it's going to be called File Audit. So the goal of this lab is you're going to create a directory on your Windows system called secrets. Once you have that secrets directory, you're going to create secrets.txt, which is just the name of the file. And then you're going to go through and you're going to set the audit policy on the Windows system to enable object access, right? So we're going to go to local policies. We're going to go to audit policies, audit object access, and we're going to turn that to enabled. Success and failure. Then once that's turned on, it doesn't turn it on globally, but it allows you to turn on object auditing to specific files. So you go in and you find the secrets.txt file, you right click on it in File Explorer, you select properties, you go to advanced, and then you're going to click continue. So go ahead and turn that on the auditing tab right there. And then once you have gone into auditing, you're going to add a principal. This is the user or group the policy applies to on the system. Then you're going to select the principal in the audit entry secret window, right? Then you're going to select the user or groups that this audit policy applies to, and it's going to be everyone. We're going to enable auditing for everyone that accesses this particular file. Then you're going to go back to the auditing entry for the secret window. You're going to select audit or type to all. and the basic permissions to the settings below. So it's going to enable it to everyone. The type of auditing is all. Anybody that tries to modify, delete, or do anything to that file. Then you're going to open up the file. You're going to type in something. Then you're going to open up Event Viewer. And then you're going to go into the Windows logs and security. And then you're going to scroll down to the file system logs. And then you're going to select one that has secrets.txt in it. So it's going to be over here, the task category is going to be secrets.txt. And you're going to see that an alert was generated where notepad.exe accessed secrets.txt. And this is going to take us up to and through the break. All right. So with that, go ahead and get rolling. Let's get the music going. We will resume at, let's resume at 15 after for this. Bring that up. Resume at 15 after, folks. And with that, this is just more laps. All right, so get rolling. I'll see you on the other side. Hit it, Ryan. I don't know how some of those GIFs actually do seem to sync up with the music. It's just so funny. All right, everybody. All right, so we just did a lab walking through the Canary token. We're running out of time. We're running behind. But I really wanted you all to do this lab, but I want to make sure as far as this lab is concerned, you all understand like conceptually how this, the Honey user, and the other labs work with each other, right? Like once again, we're not trying to get the attacker to fall into a trap because they're going to intentionally find that trap. We're taking advantage of the attacker's use of automated tools and scripts to try to find these particular vulnerabilities. And by speeding that up in Active Directory, speeding that up with users, and whoa, I just got a OBS error. Oh, that's Ryan. It basically makes it so we can start detecting these types of things. Also, with everything I've shown you up until here, do you really think that you need to get a warrant for this? Do any of you really think that you need to go through and get approval from management because we're doing something that's so cutting edge in the world of computer security that it's just impossible for anybody to do this without, having management or some type of group come up and give us authorization because we're doing something really weird, right? No. I mean, this is all really basic stuff, people. This isn't something that we need to go and get tons of improvement, get lawyers, get cops involved. Now we're going to kind of start crossing this line a little bit. And it's kind of funny. I remember this article from a number of years ago. The FBI said, malware isn't malware because we're using it and we're the good guys. So once again, if you want to check out our Spearfish General Store for our hats and shirts and other things, but go ahead and check that out. Get your Raka swag here. So you can do a lot of these same types of things with wireless, right? With wireless, you can basically set up an SSID, but here's the trick. You're going to make it so there is a password that's relatively easy for an attacker to be able to guess that. Then they come in and you can set up something with a captive portal, with a terms of use and all these different things. And then once they connect, you just go crazy, right? You can set up something like the browser exploitation with the beef hook that automatically enumerates all these modules from a attacker's browser. Like, what is the browser? What is their operating system? Trying to pull down all of the applications, trying to hook inside some persistence within that browser. You have a number of different crazy things you can set up with the browser exploitations framework's auto run rule engine. Let's talk a little bit about AV bypass. Kind of go through it quickly because, yeah, if you're going to be trying to drop malware or something that's more meaty than just getting an alert or a honey token to come back and come through that, we're going to start having to deal with AV engines, right? Especially when we're looking at Word documents, Excel spreadsheets, and PDFs, and we're moving away from like honey files and honey tokens, and we're now really getting into the point where we're creating honey claymores against an attacker. So you can arm documents. You can take this as kind of like a quick overview of how you arm documents and actually load malware into documents. But once again, you need to set it up so these documents are interesting to the attacker. Excel spreadsheets, documents, PowerPoint files, PDFs, all of these things, they need to be enticing. So you can use Metasploit's Meterpreter, where you can go through and you can create and export any of the different payloads that exist in the Metasploit framework, and you can export them as Visual Basic applications. This means it allows you to convert them into macros. Now, what do you all know about Mark of the Web? What has Microsoft tried to do to secure macros? This is actually really, really, really interesting. What is Mark of the Web with that? Yeah, how would you accomplish in Zero Trust? It's same thing. You can still create files in SharePoint and share them in there as well. It gives a pop-up and it actually disables macros if any document has Mark of the Web. Now, how does Mark of the Web get enabled on a document? Where does it have to be downloaded for Mark of the Web to be triggered? We got a lot of people typing. Tons of people going in on this. So while you're typing that, I'm going to keep rolling. We're going to circle back to this, right? Because we're creating a macro at that particular situation, right? So Microsoft Office, here's the instructions on how to enable macros in Microsoft Office. Go to the Office, you got to match the version if you can. Enable developer tab, Alt F8, open up the macros window, set it to apply to current document, and then paste the VBA code from Metasploit inside of that document, and then you just deploy it. And this is kind of what it looks like. We paste that into the document, then we save the document, and then we wait for the attacker to fire that up. Now, if we're creating malware and we're having the attacker actually execute said malware, we absolutely want to make sure that we have a warrant before we do that, okay? Because we're executing malware. And a lot of you answered my mark of the web. If it's going to have mark of the web, it's got to come from the web. If an attacker is using their back door to download files to their computer system through that back door, is it going to throw mark of the web on those documents? Yeah, Casually Joseph got it. Says if you download from the internet, it'll have mark of the web. But if you code drop further on the malware on the device, it will pull it in without mark of the web. Because as far as that document's concerned, as far as your operating system's concerned, it's just an SMB file transfer over. So very, very good. Yeah, if you download it through that malware, it's not going to have mark of the web. So this works, right? This is a very nasty thing that you can drop on an attacker's computer, and you want to make sure that you're not going to trip off possible AV alerts, because as soon as that comes out of that document, it's possibly going to have some type of detection. Now, let's say that you don't want to use Metasploit. Let's say that you have some type of really, really super cool like malware executable that's not Metasploit. You can convert any executable into a Visual Basic application. Tool in Metasploit called exe to VBA will take any random executable of your choosing. If you want to use Cobalt Strike, get on with it, and let's do it on that as well. And it'll kick it out as a Visual Basic application. Now, in this class, we also have some like geolocation macro software, and I'll quickly walk through kind of how that works. But what this does is it does wireless geolocation. So we aren't getting persistent access on a computer system, but rather what we are doing is we're simply running a macro that when it executes, it geolocates and then kicks that geolocation fingerprint over to you. Now, this gets back to the macro thing. Most people, even my grandmother who passed away a number of years ago, knew you don't run Word documents with macros. But what types of documents almost always have some kind of macros? You see it all the time in accounting departments, finance departments. Where do we see that? Excel documents, right? Trust me, an attacker is totally going to get all excited about juicy XLSX files. Put your macros in Excel files every single time, and you can do that. Now, a tool that we have created that does this is a tool called Honeybadger. It is installed on ADHD. We have some API keys on it as well. And I can show you what it looks like here in a couple of seconds. It was initially created by Tim Tomes. The current version that we were using is created by Bradley, and Bradley is just down the hall from me. And he does pen testing with us, and he's a fantastic pen tester. And what it does is it pulls back that geolocation of an attacker. Just some fun things. Years ago, when Tomes and I first were playing with all of this stuff, Tomes set this up and he ran it on one of his own web servers. And I'm not kidding, like within a couple of weeks, he started seeing active attackers coming from Moscow. Das Vidanya, right? I mean, holy crap. Like that was really, really super cool. And how it works is, if you remember, I did that NetSH WLAN. Oh no, I lost my VNC session. NetSH WLAN show networks mode equals BSSID. Honeybadger will grab all of those wireless networks and their signal attenuation, and then it'll send that off to Google, and Google will respond back with the geolocation based on where those signals actually overlap. And it comes back and it says accuracy, here's the latitude, here's the longitude. And this API has existed for a really, really long time. And we've ran this in a number of engagements. The one on the right is Pepperdine University. We've had another one, just a series of attackers in houses. There's one there in Australia. The one in the lower left-hand corner was Tim Tomes's home whenever he lived in Ohio. And it actually put the pin not just on his house, but where his office was in his house. Now, you can trick an attacker to run this code in a variety of different ways, right? You can make it pretend that it's a VNC system. And it's funny, I ran this class for a long time, and then the SANS Institute said I couldn't teach it anymore because they wanted me teaching SANS 504. Kind of one of the reasons why I walked away, but they were like, yeah, you got to teach SANS 504. SANS 504 makes us, $26 million a year. Your cyber deception class, nah, you got to get somebody else to teach it. And somebody else was teaching it, and they taught it at Walmart, I believe. And one of the people got very, very, very frustrated. And by the way, they weren't in the produce department at Walmart. They were like literally at like a headquarters teaching like people on the security team. Just want to clarify that in case there's some kind of confusion around what I meant by them teaching this at Walmart. And they were like, yeah, but VNC is old. Look at it. It's old. You don't really think that anybody would run VNC because look at it. It's just old. Well, here's the deal. If you go to images.shodan.io, wait for this to come up. All right. You can do a search for port 5900. And these are all VNC systems that are out there. And if I just do a search on port 5900, and thank you, God, for none of these example VNC systems that I just popped up on my screen with a live demo in front of a live studio audience, I want to say thank you, sweet baby Jesus, for not having any of these systems have porn on them today. All right. So with this, you can see that there is a lot of VNC systems that are out there. Shodan has basically said, Emmanuel, today. And God's like, oh shit, got to put my sandwich down. Got to get the smite button for John. But look at this. Like these are all VNC sessions, right? Look at this. Like there's 1,304 VNC sessions that are like on the internet. And of that, there's, let's go ahead and see how many ICS systems are tagged on the internet. See if I can get that to pull up as well. We have 235 ICS systems, which once again, none are porn today. So whenever we're looking at this, it is really super duper easy to set this up. And yes, attackers are absolutely going to go after an old VNC system because there's literally hundreds of them. So kind of the last story of the class, and we'll wrap it up. I have some extra slides that are just kind of rehash slides from the beginning. And I really want to close out with this story. And then we're going to talk about me versus male model John Strand. I'll pull that up here in just a couple of minutes. So this is one of my favorite cyber deception stories of all time that has very little to do with cyber deception. My wife and I, a long time ago, we had a bank that was a big, scary bank in Germany. And just for the record, all banks in Germany are terrifying, right? And this particular bank wanted me to come out during Thanksgiving, and they wanted me to come hang out with them. And I loved the idea of going out and hanging out with them. But the problem was it was over Thanksgiving, and I didn't want to tell them no directly. So I basically gave them a bid that was kind of a polite go away bid that was 2 to 3 times more expensive than what I would have charged to go on site for 2 weeks with them. And they signed it. They signed it immediately. And then they sent me the purchase order, and it wasn't in US dollars. It was in euros. And at the time, euros were worth like 150% of what a US dollar was at that time. So I've got this contract signed for like this obscene amount of money. And I'm like, crap, now I've got to do this. So I go down to my wife and I'm like, honey, I've got a problem. I probably have to go to Germany during Thanksgiving. And justifiably, I got a little bit of a tongue lashing from my wife She was not happy at all that I signed this contract. So she's frustrated. I'm kind of frustrated. I'm like, but I got this contract. It's a lot of money and it's just kind of scary. And she goes, can I see the contract? So she looks at this contract and then she like sets it down and she walks out of the kitchen. And I'm like, what's going on? I'm like, she's going to leave me. And she goes, no, I'm packing. Kids, we're going to Germany. So we packed up my whole family and we flew to Germany and we spent like 2 weeks there. That was absolutely awesome. But here's the thing. My wife set up the hotel rooms for us, and the hotel that was recommended to my family by the customer was this really nice Hilton that was like right next door to the bank. They're like, stay here. My wife looked at it and it was like $350 per night to stay in this hotel, right? That's kind of crazy. So my wife found another hotel that catered to American tourists. So we get off the plane and then we get on the train. And the other thing that she loved about this hotel, it was right next to the train station. So we could quickly and easily get out and we could go to other cities and all this stuff. Now, those of you that are in Europe, you're probably thinking to yourself, oh crap, I see where this is going. So we get off this train and we're walking to find the hotel. And like the cell phone, like, and it says turn right on this street. And I look down the street and it's like red and pink lights all the way down the street. And I'm like, oh God, that can't be it. All right. So we keep walking and it's like, no, turn around, go back to that street. So we turn around and we go back to that street and we go down a couple of blocks. And it's the red light district, right? It's the red light district. And like, you know, this wasn't this exact time, but later on in that week, we had a soiled dove that saw me walking with my family and shouted out at me. And she says, hey, honey, looking for a good time? And my kids are like, yes, we are. Yes, we are. Yes, we are. And I'm like, no, we're not. We're not. So we get up to this hotel because the H was burnt out. And it was one of those classy places that you have to like push a button in order to open up the gate to get in the front door. So it's like, and this lady shouts out to us like, I'm like, oh, we're here. We have a reservation for a hotel room. And she's like, oh God, come on in, come on in. So we get in and we get into the lobby. And like this lady, the first thing she says to us is, oh my God, you have children. And we're like, yeah, we got kids. Like we got a family that we're here. And she's like, we have to put in like, oh yeah, we got the red light. Yeah, we got a red light going here. So absolute red lights going on all over the place in our heads, right? She's like, we need to put new carpet in your rooms. And she yells at somebody in German. And it's like, oh, this guy comes out with a big roll of carpet. And he's like, all right, I'm on it. And he goes upstairs and she's like, he's going to get new carpet in your room. But in the meantime, can I make you something to eat? And she had like all of these little danishes and pastries. And she's like, we don't get a lot of families here. And I'm like, I could guess, right? So we get into this hotel room. The guy puts down new carpet. We go up to the rooms. The rooms are two adjoining rooms. All right. Two adjoining rooms. And there's a door that's going between my wife and I's room and the kids' room. And we're like, oh my God, we made it. We finally made it. Oh, geez, this is crazy. What are we going to do? Like, and the thing that's going through my head is thank God I didn't book the hotel room because this is not something I would ever live down under any circumstances as a guy. Just wouldn't. And here I am telling this story a long time afterwards. So we have all the lights off. The kids are in bed. We're calming down, big, deep breaths. And then all of a sudden, the dude that installed the carpet bursts into our room, like just kind of comes up like with a key and unlocks it, comes right up to the bed with my wife and I, leans in next to me and goes, hey, don't let your kids turn on the televisions. And then he goes up to each of the televisions and he unplugs them. And my kids see this, of course, and they're like, what's on the TVs? What's on the TVs? And like the whole rest of the trip that like the kids are trying to like, you know, trying to go plug in the TVs to see what's on the televisions. And one of the days the kids weren't there. I plugged them in. It was like every channel had a different type of porn on it. It was crazy. But I spent 2 weeks at this bank. Okay. 2 weeks at this bank. And yeah, that's it. That's it. And we set up some deception at this bank. And this is what we got at 2 weeks. Now, I love this particular story because there was something like 247 instances where we were able to see attackers that were going after parts of the website of this big, scary bank that were not your general population, never went there. What we did next is we took all of the ASNs, like the internet zip codes for every single one of these IP addresses, and we saw if any internal computer systems on the inside of that environment were visiting out to any of these different places. And we found 4 systems that were compromised. Completely bypassed AV. This is what I mean by this is actionable, real threat intelligence. Actionable, real threat intelligence. You can do it. This is another one, Chris Brenton and myself. This was back in 2013, over a decade ago. We took over a botnet command and control server. It was one of his customers at the time before he came to work with us. We took it over, reset the passwords, opened it up so they had to come through an application that was Honeybadgered, and we were able to locate all of the people that were controlling the the botnet. And this sucks because you get it to the FBI and you're like, here's the systems, here's the locations, these are all the people that are running this botnet. And literally at that time, like the FBI was just like, I don't even know what to do with this. They were like a dog that caught a car, right? It's just crazy. So Honeybadger, we actually have, and this is the last thing that we're going to do. I want to show you how to start Honeybadger on the class VM. All right. This is actually pretty easy peasy. You have to CD into the Honeybadger directory, opt Honeybadger, and then server, right? And then just do history. And in your history, you can see that there is the command to start the Honeybadger server right here. And we actually have API keys built in. So you can actually play around with it. These keys may be disabled. I'm not 100% certain by Google. This will start up the Honeybadger server, and it listens on port 5000, right? And I've got some data pre-populated inside of the Honeybadger server that you can use. Let me open this up. Oh yeah, and it's also free. Now, whenever you're playing with Honeybadger, you won't actually be doing it in the like this VM. You're going to want to stand this up on your own server, but I wanted to show you guys what Honeybadger looks like when it is running. And this is what Honeybadger looks like. And we got some demo data in it as well. There we go. And you can see that these are the links, and these are some of the Honeybadger system. Like, you can actually zoom in on, these Honeybadger instances, and here you go. And there's full usage documentation there as well. You can see that this pin is right on top of where I am right now, which is our Sturgis office. This is the Black Hills Information Security office building location. Right there is where I am. You see we're right next to that blue pin is where we are. And what we basically say is like, yeah, I was teaching this to some people in the Air Force, and they were like, that's close enough for us. And I'm like, whoa. Okay. And basically what you do with this is you establish a target. We have demos, and then you can generate the macro associated with it. And then that's the code that you put inside of your document to have it work. All right. So that's kind of it. Like I said, I have some additional slides that I have in here where they're really re-hitting all of the main things that we talked about in the first day. A lot of these slides are just the same slides. They're just reiterating the same things. But I wanted to kind of go through and just kind of close out with last presentation. We probably won't do Ask Me Anything. I guess the question is, do we want to do Ask Me Anything, or do you want me to do the John Strand versus John Strand, or the John Strand differences. What do we want? All right, you want to see John Strand versus John Strand. All right, so here we go. All right, so I put this presentation together. Let me stop sharing, and then we're going to go ahead and reshare my screen. Here we go. And I put this slideshow together to specifically for the TSA, because I don't know if you're aware of this, but John Strand is a January 6th insurrectionist. He also happens to be an underwear model, which creates a little bit of confusion. Just letting you know that a lot of people are just like, yeah, I didn't know that you weren't the male model January 6th insurrectionist. So first things first, when I was in school and I was graduating from high school, I was voted most likely to overthrow a government. Okay. It was not the US government. I was most likely to overthrow a government at some point. And this, of course, is a picture of me, not in high school. This was middle school, and there's no way that anybody would ever see this particular costume and think that boy ain't gonna date until he's well into college. That's not what we do. But this is the male model, John Strand. Once again, he's different than me. I know that that's hard to understand. He's not wearing a mask, poor social distancing, all of these different things. Really just, we're different people is what I'm trying to say. And I understand that there's a lot of confusion that people look at us, and we're like Doublemint twins, honestly. I mean, if you look at me and you look at male model John Strand, I'm a threat modeler. He's the male model. By the way, I'm the one on the left, for the record. I'm the one on the left. Like, I know it's like twins. It's crazy, but he's the one on the right, and I'll try to clarify as much as I can. Also, from the TSA's perspective, I am not, nor have I ever been, a male model. And this is a tough thing for TSA agents. I'm the one on the left. He's the one on the right. Okay. Left me, right is John Strand, male model. We're different people. But I've got to try to get this across to the TSA that we are different people, because he's going to prison, right, for trying to overthrow the United States government, right? So it's just, everybody has a doppelganger. Mine just happens to have the same name as me. And his Instagram is fantastic. And I'm a big enough man, I can admit it. His abs are better than mine. I know this is tough for a lot of guys to believe, but I'm going to admit it right now. He's got better abs than me, right? I'm okay with that. I mean, mine are great, don't get me wrong, but his are spectacular. In fact, he's one of the only people, I think, if I was walking between two trains as a hobo and he jumped out in a trench coat and he was naked, I'm not even going to be offended by this. Like, I wouldn't even consider this like sexual assault at all. I mean, it gets into a question of why would I actually be in a train yard? There's all kinds of things that we're not even going to get into about that. But if this were to happen to me, I'd feel like I'm honored. I would feel like I'm blessed by an angel, right? That's just like, this isn't creepy. There's no way this is going to go wrong. The other thing that I need to make abundantly clear is I also know how to effectively wear pants and underwear. One of the key differentiators between me and John Strand is if you just throw out a pack of underwear, John Strand tries to wear it all over his body while upside down and clearly like glistened up with baby oil. Like, he doesn't know how this works. I know it's a humble brag. But I'm pretty sure I got this underwear thing down. John Strand, he's working on it. And the fact that he's continuing to work on it makes him a hero for all of us, by the way. Also, I just want to say, God bless America. I love America for all of its faults and all of its foibles. And, I think that that's one of the key differences between John Strand and myself is I love America. And I don't think he does. Honestly, I just don't. So that's the key difference between John Strand versus John Strand. And we're going to have to close it down with that. I want to say thank you so much for a great week. This was a lot of fun. The YouTubes were awesome. They were super cool. Thank you so much, all of you on YouTube. You made this just like that much more special. And I hope you all get an opportunity to take this stuff, all joking aside, and really start doing some stuff with cyber deception in your organization. That's what this is all about. And I have one last thing, one final little thing. Megan, did we get that link working for registering for next week?
Yes, we did. And I
Awesome.
posted it.
We're going to put that up again, but we got to do
Okay.
our closing stuff. Ryan, Megan, we've got to do it, as tough as it is. Here's the deal, folks. In this class, and what we have done and what we have been doing since COVID, it has been a team effort for a long time. We have some people here that are just absolutely fantastic. We also have some sponsors that are just amazing. We really appreciate all of our new sponsors. We appreciate Arnie. I've lost my mouse. But also we want to say Barricade Cyber Solutions. Thank you so much for supporting this. We really appreciate it. But I want to talk a little bit about the origins of Pay What You Can and the origins of Anti-Siphon. Anti-Siphon was born out of the coal fire that was COVID. We ended up in a situation where our conferences were canceled. We weren't able to actually do conferences. We weren't able to do training. We weren't able to do any of these things that we normally do and that we love to do for the community. And we decided that we wanted to do something different. And we initially had conversations and we were like, there's a bunch of people that are underrepresented in computer security, right? We don't have enough women in information security. We don't have enough African Americans. We don't have enough Pacific Islanders, Native Americans. It's pretty much people that look a lot like me, as fabulous as the John Strands are, right? And we initially had a conversation about doing scholarships, right? And I want you to know that right off the bat, I effing hate scholarships. I think scholarships are wonderful because they help that person. I think they're wonderful because organizations are trying to do something for different people that are underprivileged. I effing hate them. And the reason why I hate scholarships is because they don't change the calculation. They don't change anything than a very small number of people. So the question was, how do we actually fundamentally change the entire game? Because we could come up with scholarships for African Americans. We could come up with scholarships for women. We could come up with scholarships for Pacific Islanders. We could come up with scholarships for Native Americans. We could come up with scholarships for people of different sexual orientation. But the question is, does any of that actually fix anything? I mean, like, it does work for the people that get them. I'm not ripping on that. But does it fundamentally change the game? And the answer was, no, it doesn't. So we decided that what we were going to do is we're going to burn the bridges down. See, the bridge and the gates, let's just say gates. We're going to burn the gates down. The thing that you need to understand is the main gate getting into this industry is money. If you're a single mom working 2 jobs trying to get into the industry, it's money. If you're somebody working in the Appalachian Mountains and you have a proclivity for IT, but you just have grown up dirt poor, your problem is money. If you live in South Dakota, one of the poorest states in the Union where I live, your biggest problem in getting into this industry is money. Regardless of your sexual orientation, your race, your creed, your religion, money is the great discriminator across everything. And we hear people all the time talk about how it is that we have 1.4 million jobs we need to fill. And then we have institutions that stand up and they say, you know what? You should come over here and you should take $10,000 training from us. That's going to fix the problem. We're going to have training that's $10,000 and we're going to fix the problem in computer security. We're going to be helpful. I'm going to be honest with you. You can't be patriotic. You can't say that you support the United States if your profit margins are 90%. You just can't. So what are we going to do? We're going to burn those gates down. And by burning those gates down, we created the Pay What You Can training model that we have. I have a number of classes. Kevin Johnson, I think Joff has some Pay What You Can classes. We're doing these pay what you can classes because we want to get as many people into this industry as we possibly can, because that should be our primary goal. And to that end, I want to say thank you to two groups of people, in addition to our sponsors who are awesome. The first group of people that I want to say thank you to are the people that paid. If we could get a round of applause for the people that chose to pay because they didn't have to pay. They sat down and they looked at this. Yeah, it's not about the money. It's about sending a message. And you better be damn right we're sending a message. There's a number of people that paid and they showed up to this class. And I want to personally say thank you to every damn one of you that looked down on that screen and you saw that there was an option to pay absolutely nothing and you decided to pay something. And there's some of you that pay like the full amount. Thank you so much. On behalf of myself, all the team at Anti-Siphon, all these people that are here, thank you. You make this work. There's another group of people that I want to say thank you to. And that's the people that didn't pay anything. I constantly get pushback for pay what you can. You should make the minimum $20. You should make the minimum $5. You should make it $50. Look at the value that you're giving all these people. And people only value it in the amount of money that they spend to get here. We have people in this class that are stay-at-home moms and dads. We have people in this class that are making effing minimum wage. They're making less than a survivable wage to come to this class. And for these people that are coming into this course, they don't have money. I know that there's people out there like, what's the big deal with $20? Just don't have another latte. Trust me, I've been poor. I know what it's like to put duct tape on a kid's shoes just so they can get to school. That's how I grew up. And there's a bunch of people that I grew up with, my friends, they didn't have money for anything. And yes, $20 makes a huge difference to those people. And if you don't understand that, that's fine. But trust me, $20 makes a huge difference. And the other thing that makes a huge difference is the time that they invest in this class. Because their entire life is based on a time clock. Everything they do is logged to the hour, many times rounded down. And the only thing that they have to give is their precious time. And that time when they're working 2, sometimes 3 jobs to sit down and take this course and go through it means that they're spending less time with their kids. It means they're spending less time with their significant others. It means they're spending less time focusing on just healing from their shift before they get to another effing shift that is a bone-crushing shift at absolutely horrible pay. What do we call it? Bullshit hours for bullshit pay? And they took some of those precious hours that they have and they chose to spend it with me and this team and what we have done. And I think that every single one of them deserves a round of applause. So if we could give them a round of applause and give them a thank you for being here whenever they could be doing a number of other things with the precious time that they have. And we need to acknowledge that. And that's ultimately what Anti-Siphon is all about. That's ultimately what all of this is about, is getting as many people into the industry as we possibly can. We try to do these pay what you can training classes, get people in, and then we try to make our training classes as affordable as we humanly can. And not just affordable. We try to make them affordable, but we try to make them training classes that can go toe-to-toe with any other goddamn class that you take that's thousands of dollars and absolutely trying to profiteer off of everything around them. And that's what we're doing here. So as much as I joke about this stuff, as much as I joke about, male model John Strand versus me and all of these different things, we take this mission deadly serious at Anti-Siphon. We're going to get as many people into the industry as we possibly can. We're going to get people trained in as best the possibility as we possibly can. And for that, I want to say thanks again for everybody that shows up and makes this possible. Because if it wasn't for all of you, it would just be me sitting in a room. I guess I'd be playing Fruit Ninja or something. This gives me purpose in my life. This is my vocation. This is my avocation. And with that, thank you so much for attending. And don't forget, we have another beginning of the cycle, starting with SOC core skills next week. I hope to see you all register for it. Remember, it is recorded. You don't have to make it to all the sessions live, and I will see you on Monday. Thanks again, everybody. Get out of here. Have a great weekend.
Thanks again, everyone. Don't forget, if you want to attend next week, make sure you register through our site because it will not be streamed on YouTube. We just don't have the bandwidth next week, but we're going to
make it
try and do it again.
normalized. Not yet, though.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, John. Bye, everyone. Ryan,
Bye, everyone.
I think
Thanks
that
for coming.
I guess we can say kill it with fire.